So to give you a preview of our new Carolrhoda novels, I'll start with The Color of Sound by Emily Barth Eisler. This is about Rosie, who's a 12-year-old musical prodigy. She's been playing violin since she was tiny, and her whole life has revolved around practicing and performing. Until she decides she needs a break, and she goes on strike. She wants to figure out who she is without the violin. So she starts making new friends, getting new hobbies, uncovering family secrets, and even bending the space-time continuum a little. Typical summer stuff. But one thing Rosie can't do is separate herself from music entirely because she has synesthesia. This is a neurological condition which the author also has, and it essentially blends the senses. It can manifest in all sorts of different ways, but in Rosie's case, the brain associates visual stimuli with sounds as well. So for her, music is effectively everywhere, in everything she sees, and she can't shut it off. Eventually, she comes to embrace it, especially after she discovers the role that music has played in several generations of her family. That family history involves some serious issues, including intergenerational trauma stemming from the Holocaust, which are really well and sensitively integrated into Rosie's quest for self-expression. Overall, this is a story about how sight and sound are intertwined with emotions and about what can happen when you open yourself up to seeing the world and yourself in new ways. In Cruzita and the Mariacheros by Ashley Granillo, you might notice there is also a violin in play, but in a very different way. Cruzita is an aspiring pop star who plans to go viral and get famous this summer, but instead she has to help out at her family's struggling bakery. Her beloved great uncle has just died, and everyone's having a really hard time managing this bakery without him, not just because of their grief, but because the business is in trouble. Cruzita doesn't really want anything to do with the bakery, but the only other thing she's allowed to do this summer is take mariachi lessons, which she's also dreading because she doesn't know how to play an instrument and she isn't fluent in Spanish, two skills that are pretty useful in performing Mexican folk music. But as Cruzita gets to know her fellow students, aka the Mariacheros, and starts to learn how to play the violin, kinda, sorta, she gains a deeper understanding of the music and a greater confidence in herself, and she starts to feel more connected to the Mexican-American culture and heritage that her family has been trying to honor all along through the bakery. She even comes up with a plan to help save the bakery that involves performing with her mariachi group, and she discovers that there are many ways to be a star. The author, like Cruzita, is Mexican-American and a beginner Spanish speaker whose family once owned a bakery. It is a really sweet, touching story, but I recommend reading it when you're not already hungry because the baked goods do all sound super delicious. We'll also be releasing a paperback edition of Hear Me by Carrie O'Malley Sarah. It's about a girl who experiences sudden onset hearing loss, as the author did in her youth, and has to cope with her parents' determination to quote-unquote fix her hearing while she's adjusting to her new reality. The paperback edition includes an updated resource list at the back. It's definitely worth checking out. And on our YA list, Pangu's Shadow by Karen Bao is a sci-fi murder mystery set in the fictional Pangu star system. Ver and Errol are two rival biology apprentices working at a prestigious lab on the most prosperous moon in the system. Errol's parents are immigrants from a second moon, and she's mostly pursuing this career path to make them proud. Ver is from the third moon, and this is really personal for her. She is hoping to do research that will help find a cure to her degenerative disease. Unfortunately, their supervisor turns up dead in the lab on a night when Ver and Errol were the only other people there, and they are immediately the prime suspects in his murder. They reluctantly team up to find the real killer and clear their names, and in the process, they uncover some dark secrets about the three moons. There's some really organic social commentary woven into the story, touching on disability, xenophobia, class dynamics, but it's also a fast-paced page-turner of a whodunit in space. The author is a biologist and grounded the story in both real science and real experience in academia. Plus, her background as a second-generation Chinese immigrant informed the characters and the setting, and Ver's fictional illness was inspired by the author's experiences with chronic pain. This is a really intriguing read, and one that I personally couldn't put down when I first encountered it. Finally, Eyes Open by Lynn Miller-Lockman is a novel in verse set in 1960s Portugal during the Salazar dictatorship. It's about teen poet Sonia, who fancies herself to be a rebel but has a pretty comfortable middle-class life at the start of the story. Her family owns a restaurant, she is running a secret poetry club at school, she's got a hotshot artist boyfriend, life is pretty good, but it all falls apart in quick succession. Her boyfriend gets arrested for dissident activities, then her family's restaurant gets shut down by the government for letting its musical entertainment sing a forbidden song, and suddenly Sonia has to drop out of school and go to work to help support her family. She gets a job in a hotel laundry, which is really grueling, really dangerous work. Workers are constantly getting injured, the conditions are terrible, and at this point, she realizes nobody else is going to protect her. And if she wants justice for herself and her fellow workers, she's going to have to speak up in her own voice, rather than depending on her boyfriend or her family to protect her. She's going to have to become her own hero. Lynn lived in Lisbon part-time for years. She's fluent in Portuguese and has done translation work from Portuguese to English. She also consulted Portuguese people who lived through this period, and she brings a really deep cultural and historical knowledge to the story. It's a really powerful read. And that is our Spring 2024 novel list. I hope you'll check it out.